The rain didn't just fall that night. It felt like a heavy, cold blanket trying to suffocate the world. The ancient temple, usually a place of profound peace and silent prayers, had become a fortress of shadows. Up high, where the ancient, moss-covered fish-scale tiles sloped sharply toward the unforgiving brick courtyard below, a tiny life was hanging by a thread. She was just a speck against the vast dark roof, a fragile calico kitten, trembling so violently that her small body seemed to vibrate with every gust of the biting wind. The world was overwhelmingly massive, deafeningly loud, and terrifyingly cold. She pressed her small, soaked body against a carved stone dragon, seeking shelter where there was none. Her fur, heavily matted by the relentless downpour, clung to her frail bones. But it was her eyes that told the deepest story. Large, luminous, emerald green eyes, wide with a quiet, desperate plea to a universe that seemed entirely indifferent. Over her right eye, a distinct patch of vivid orange fur was darkened by the rain, a small mark of uniqueness on a canvas of misery. She had no voice left to cry out. She was entirely alone, waiting for a morning she wasn't sure she would survive to see. Through the dense curtain of the storm, a beam of light sliced through the darkness. The headlights of the rescue vehicle swept across the ancient courtyard, casting long, eerie shadows. From her precarious perch, the little calico watched the beams of light dance across the wet stone. Hope is a strange thing. Even when a creature is exhausted, hope can make the heart beat just a little bit faster. The heavy thud of boots on the flooded bricks broke through the rhythm of the rain. Flashlight beams crisscrossed the towering architecture, searching, sweeping, until finally, a warm golden ray of light rested upon her. For a moment, she froze. Was this danger, or was this salvation? She shrank back instinctively, pressing herself as flat as she could against the slippery tiles. The process of reaching her was agonizingly slow. Every step the rescuer took up that tall wooden ladder was a battle against the slick, treacherous moss and the howling wind. From below, it looked impossible. From above, to the terrified kitten, the giant figure ascending toward her was a mountain moving closer. Yet, as the rescuer's head finally crested the edge of the roof, the movements changed. The frantic urgency of the climb melted into a deliberate, agonizingly slow gentleness. A hand reached out, not to grab, but to offer. A silent promise suspended in the freezing air. She looked at that hand, her green eyes wide, her little chest heaving. She didn't have the strength to run, but deep down, perhaps she didn't want to. When the rescuer's warm, bare hand gently brushed the top of her soaked head, a visible shudder went through her. It wasn't fear this time, it was the shock of warmth. The shock of a gentle touch in a world that had, until now, only offered hardship. A soft, pale yellow fleece towel was unfolded, wrapping around her shivering frame, blocking out the wind, the rain, and the terrifying height. Swaddled tightly, pressed against the rhythmic, reassuring heartbeat of her rescuer, she was carried down from the dark. The descent was a blur. The only thing that mattered was the cocoon of warmth. Inside the rescue vehicle, the roar of the storm was reduced to a muffled drumming against the windows. The heater hummed, a mechanical lullaby blowing warm air over the towel. Peeking out from the folds of the yellow fleece, she watched the red taillights of other cars reflecting in the puddles outside. The terror in her green eyes began to soften, replaced by a profound, heavy exhaustion. She was safe, but the trauma of the streets doesn't wash off as easily as the mud. She kept her body tightly coiled, expecting the warmth to be a trick, a temporary pause in a life of running. We named her Cleo, a strong name for a little survivor who had conquered the roof of the world. The first few days at the sanctuary were a delicate dance of building trust. Cleo was given a quiet, dimly lit corner, a soft bed, and the space to breathe. Food was placed near her, but at first, she only stared at it from the back of her enclosure. The smell of warm broth and tender meat must have been maddening, yet her fear held her back. We didn't push. We just sat nearby, speaking in low, soft tones, letting her know she was no longer invisible. Slowly, inch by inch, hunger overcame fear. The first time she crept forward to eat, she kept one eye fixed entirely on us, her small body tense and ready to flee. But as she tasted the warm meal, her tension broke. She ate with a heartbreaking urgency, tiny sounds of satisfaction escaping her throat. It was the first step toward the rest of her life. Healing is never just physical. It is a slow thawing of the soul. As the days turned into weeks, the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The scruffy, matted fur that had once clung to her frail frame was gently cleaned and brushed until it blossomed into a gloriously soft, thick calico coat. The white base of her fur shone brilliantly, highlighting the stark black and vibrant orange patches. That signature orange mark over her right eye was no longer darkened by rain and grime. It was a bright, beautiful emblem of her unique spirit. She began to fill out, her fragile bones hidden beneath a healthy layer of kitten softness. But the most beautiful change was in her eyes. The haunted, wide-eyed stare of the creature on the roof faded. Her emerald green eyes grew bright, curious, and filled with a mischievous spark. She learned that hands were for petting, not striking. She learned that a lap is the safest place in the world to fall asleep. The first time we heard her purr, it was barely a rumble, a rusty little engine starting up for the very first time. By the second week, that purr was a constant, loud vibration that shook her entire small body whenever someone walked into the room. She began to play, chasing feather wands with clumsy, joyful leaps, completely forgetting the ghosts of her past. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. She had learned how to be a kitten. Then came the day the sanctuary doors opened and her forever family walked in. It is always a moment of quiet magic when the right person locks eyes with the right animal. They sat on the floor of the playroom, and Cleo, who had once hidden from shadows, trotted right up to them. She sniffed an outstretched hand, then confidently bumped her head against it, instantly demanding affection. They scooped her up, and she melted into their arms, turning her face upward to catch the sunlight streaming through the window. In that sunbeam, her calico coat looked like spun gold. Watching them walk out the door, carrying the little carrier that held a life completely rewritten, it's impossible not to reflect on that stormy night. She was just a tiny, shivering speck on an ancient, towering roof, completely at the mercy of the elements. But an act of compassion reached into the dark and pulled her back. Every life matters. Every heartbeat is a story waiting for a better chapter. Cleo's story started in the cold rain, but it continues in the warmth of a sunlit living room, surrounded by love. It is a reminder that no matter how dark the storm gets, the sun always